Coming up with something completely new, that's my niche. New to market or first to world products, and they're always patentable because they're completely unique and completely innovative. And there's two things for an invention. There's, an inventive step, and it has to be unique, so novelty. And so, it hasn't been done before. And so that's the key to invention. And industrial design is really about making something marketable and manufacturable. And it's usually very user-centric so that the person has a really good user experience with it.
Okay, well, welcome everyone to the next episode of That Product Market Fit Guy. My name's Steve Davis and I'll be the host for today, and it's my pleasure to introduce Scot Farley from F3 Industrial Design. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me on again.
Some of you
Always nice to be able to impart a bit of knowledge to people who might be on this path of product development, get them on the right path.
Yeah, look, some of you may have seen a previous episode that Trevor hosted that was talking to Scott. He's now back by popular demand, so we'll just carry on and dig a bit deeper into some of the things that they touched on last time. Obviously, from the design side of things, so we're going to be looking at how that design process interleaves with the commercialization process and how it fits in with knowing your market and that kind of stuff, which is the flavour of these podcasts. Overall, generally, when we look at a new innovation, someone usually identifies a problem. They come up with some sort of idea of how to fix it or how to do it, to solve it. And then they've got to try and put some sort of concept around how you would actually put that into practice. And then that rolls on into design and prototyping through that process. So I guess you see people come to you at various stages of that process. And I guess they have various difficulties they experience at different parts of that process, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We get people coming through with just an idea, just a problem. Sometimes we just have isolated a problem. They say, well, this is an issue in our industry. They don't really even have an idea how to solve it. And I guess I'm a little bit unique I'm an industrial designer, but I'm also an inventor and a passionate inventor. I love it. I love invention. It's really the backbone of Australia and all civilizations, coming up with new ideas that help humanity. And so a lot of times attorneys get a client and they'll just say, look, I can't really do much with your idea because there's nothing to write up because there's no solution. So an invention's a solution, not an idea. You can have any number of ideas, but until you make a solution out of it, it's not really an invention. So they can't really do much. They can't patent it. So they get sent to me and I look at the problem and, first of all, what we do is we isolate whether that problem's worth fixing, but basically, or if it can make money out of it. And people come to me at all levels, and I love it when someone comes to me with a prototype and they've solved the problem in some manner. They're proper inventors, and I can honestly count them on two hands. The people in 30 years I've been doing this, there's not many inventors around. There's a lot of people with great ideas in Australia, and a lot of people working in industries who can see a problem and isolate and bring it to me and we solve it. But yeah, I love it when someone comes to me, they've actually solved the problem with a prototype and it's a physical prototype that works on some level. And I don't think I've ever taken a product to market that was at that level because there's so many other hats to put on with ergonomics and safety and manufacturing and shipping. All these things come into it. So usually the prototype needs redevelopment, but it's always nice to see a solution because that's the inventor. And I guess, whether it's an idea or a problem, that the key is to find out what the actual market wants solved, because it might be a problem for that one person, but is there a whole lot of other people who need the same problem solved, and is their market big enough to warrant all the costs and infrastructure and energy and labor that comes into actually developing a product for that solution?
Yeah, that's exactly what we talk about product market fit, making sure you really understand what the customer really wants.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you have certain views, but until you really road test that with a number of actual customers or potential customers, it's very difficult to make sure you've got it right.
Absolutely.
And as you say, probably ideally, the earlier they can do that, the better, because once they go too far down the prototyping route, they're already kind of locked into what they think the solution is.
Yep.
And you may have to backtrack significantly on that, and you may or may not, but depending on where they've gone. But if they work out their market fit from the beginning, work out what the real problem areas, pain points are right up front, then that tends to feed into better as to a much more viable MVP or minimal viable product, as we talk about.
Absolutely.
Would be what you'd make from that.
Yeah. And I've always gone by intuition. I basically, look at the problem and then just put myself in the shoes of the actual user. What's actually going on, and just become that person for a month or so, just to live in that person's feet and just see, what's actually the problem, what are their pain points, what's needed. And that's all about intuition and imagination, and just buying into the problem. With Trevor's Advivo's tools now, it's much easier to be a lot more scientific about that process. So not everyone's, imaginative and has a very visual imagination like myself. And so I see a lot of projects that come to me from other design studios. I'm not trying to bag it, but they've sort of missed the point. And I think Trevor's Trevor's tools allow you to get a point straight away and then design around the problem, rather than around
Yeah.
design a design award, or whatever, because in
Yeah.
the end, commercial outcome is what we're interested in. We want results for people. Trevor's the same, and you're the same, and that's why we work so well together. But if you're really just motivated by other goals, you can easily miss the point. Travel a long way along a path, put patents in place, get prototypes done, spend a lot of money, and really have still not hit the key pain points of the user, and the product can be unsuccessful.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, investing up front a bit in doing that market research and understanding that really well can save you so much time and money. Sort of
Yeah,
going
this is
that
one of
down.
those industries
Yeah.
where if you don't do the groundwork and don't build things on stone and just build them on sand, you just end up with
Mm.
a disaster down the track. You
Yeah.
can spend just as much money, and that's why R&D typically costs a lot of money. People take the wrong path. So there's a graph we use. It's time versus money, and it's exponential. As you go up the process, the costs get more and more expensive. So you're better off failing really early, testing and failing early. So you're not
And
spending a lot of
iterating.
money,
Mm.
not getting right to the solution at the end, and then realizing there's a problem, and coming back to the start. And that's typically why I see R&D projects blow out cost wise.
Okay. Yeah, and assuming you've done that, then one of the interesting things I want to talk to you about is I know you've already said, you make that distinction between invention and just design, as it were. That they're both needed, but that key step of being that inventor, it'd be really great to sort of dig into that a bit more, and probably in terms of some examples. If you've got, I'm sure you've got a million
Yeah, I've actually
examples, but
put two
a couple
examples
of
aside. We did discuss trying to discuss to uncover that through this podcast, and it's to me it's really hard when a client comes in to just to communicate with them that invention is not industrial design. Industrial design is not invention. And so I've got a couple of examples here, and I'll just run through them with you, just showing the difference between industrial design and an invention. Invention's all about coming up with something completely new. That's my niche. New to market or first to world products, and they're always patentable because they're completely unique and completely innovative. And there's two things for an invention. There's, an inventive step, and it has to be unique, so novelty. And so, it hasn't been done before. And so that's the key to invention. And industrial design is really about making something marketable and manufacturable. And it's usually very user centric, so that the person has a really good user experience with it. So I'll just show you an invented product. So this is it's a magnetic pickup stick. This has been a bit beaten around because we've done testing on it, but tried to break it, run it over the cars and things. But it's called Ultra Sticks, and Ultra Stick. And so basically, what this is a magnetic pickup stick, but it's quite a lot different to the ones on the market already. So there are magnetic pickup sticks on the market. This was specifically designed for when you pour a slab in a high-rise building or whatever, and you have a suspended slab. All the metalwork sits on the formwork, and then there's lots of ties and metalwork that sits down on the ply before you pour the cement. If you leave it there, then the ceiling that becomes the ceiling is all covered in stains of the metalwork that's rusting away in the ceiling. So it all has to be taken away. And so existing products, generally stainless steel, they have a magnet on the end, and they get drawn up. The magnet gets drawn up the tube, and the problem is the magnet is still active. So as the part gets picked up, sticks on here, and as this magnet is drawn up, it gets drawn up the tube. And so the user has to then strip that off and put it into a bucket, which is very time consuming. It spikes the hands. It's frustrating. And my client came to me from my attorney, and the attorney said, look, I've got a client who has a solution, but it really doesn't, it's not patentable in any way. So can you have a look at it and sort of see how you can improve on that? And what the client had done, he'd seen that there was, and he had a product, he was in scaffolding. And so he had developed and made a copper pickup stick, and had all copper flanges and copper pipe and a handle off a something out of Bunnings, and it was all very expensive and probably not the right materials. And it didn't really have any benefit because it did the same thing as the other ones did, just in different materials, and probably the copper was less robust than the other materials. So when I looked at it, I saw that the opportunity was in cost saving because labor on site is very expensive, and I saw there's an opportunity if we could actually somehow turn that magnet off at this point, then you could put this in the roof cavity. You've got 1.5 meters to stretch across, put it in a bucket and drop metal into it and go again. There's a lot of cost savings. So my objective was to actually try and turn this magnet off. And so it's never been done before. There's a lot of magnets that work on proximity, because if you just shift the magnet up, then that point there becomes non-magnetized. But as soon as you put it back again, it's magnetized. The problem with that is if it's still magnetized up through here, then it drags the materials up. So I had to turn that off. And so I played around. I looked into how magnets work. I've always sort of known how they work to a degree. And I thought, how can I disrupt the eddies that go? A magnet works north and south pole, and it's eddies that go around the other, and that's what causes the alignment of the molecules, causes the magnetism. So I thought, how do I disrupt that? And so I just played around with different sleeving, ferrous and non-ferrous, around the magnet, and I found a way that it actually turned the magnet off. So that worked really well for this product, and that gave him his inventive step. So that is all imagination. How, like, in my mind, how do I disrupt that polarity? How do I stop it? So this product here now, where did my ruler go? This product here now, it magnetizes, but then when you pull back the handle by just a little bit, it basically turns off. So that's not proximity, because it doesn't work even up the shaft, and that's off. That magnet is completely off now. So
Yeah.
it means
Yeah.
that you can just basically dump your metals into the bucket, and it halves the time involved in the labour of taking these pickups. So if you can imagine on site, this thing pays for itself in a day of labour, and probably allows you, in bigger sites, it allows you to start pouring the slab a day early. So huge time saving and benefits there with cost and time saving. And that became the inventive step. That was what the patent's based around, and that's invention. As against this product here, which is electrical housing. It's a plastic electrical housing. This is really industrial design, where basically someone comes to you, they've got a fixed number of components that have to go into a box, and it has to mount in a certain way and be easy to use. This has got inventive, innovative things on it. It's got release buttons that allow you to pull this off easily. It's got nice fixed that allow you to put your plugs in and have them locked off. All these sorts of things, but really it's just based on knowledge. My knowledge of how injection molding works, my knowledge about how people use things, how snap fits work, how uh, how much flex you need in a spring fit. That's all knowledge based. It's basically using engineering and your knowledge about industrial design and manufacturing and shipping, all that sort of stuff, to make a product really useful and helpful. And for this one here, we actually, because we were presenting it to, trying to get orders from it before we went to manufacturing, the prototype looked just like this. I manufacture prototypes out of 3D milling processes, and it looks just like this. You couldn't tell the difference. So that's creates an emotive response. So you've got to make an order with a company that you look at it and go, I really want one of those in my shop. I can see how this works. I can test it. I can show how it works. Whereas with this product, we just did a 3D print just to get our form and fit, show the internal client what it was going to look like. There was no need for an emotive response with that one. They basically just trying to prove the point that this is going to work and it's going to fit your components into it. So that's another big difference between like startups, I guess, and commercial jobs, which are more industrial design based.
Yeah, no, that's a good explanation. It's very clever the way you did the magnet thing. So in that particular case, was the magnet the Ultra Stick? It was kind of its own MVP in a sense, wasn't it? And, I mean, you included the main basic features you were trying to prove almost all in one. But
Exactly. And that my MVPs, which I call test jigs, the client never sees because they're just
yeah,
to be in my workshop, just playing around with ideas that I've got in my mind. And, I think that's crucial. A lot of workshops, a lot of industrial design companies don't have workshops. And I think it's a really crucial part of the thinking process to try things out. I mean, this is another product here. This is a dog collar, which is infinitely adjustable. So basically allows you to adjust to whatever length you want to get, nice grip on the deck without putting much pressure on it. But that's the first double-sided cam. So uh, previously you have cams that will pull through one way and not the other. This one locks both ways. And that was born of, a guy who had a lot of dogs and walked them every day and greyhounds and things. And they all have different neck sizes and you wanted just a quick release to adjust to that dog. So all these things are sort of born of necessity. But this one here, this is the same thing. This was prototyped to this level. And you put it on it. We go and talk to licensing companies and we go, like, this is what we have to sell, and there's an emotional response there, and they go, oh yeah, I can see how that works, and test it and go and play with it and do videos with it and all these things. It's more expensive to do it that way, but it's got so many down the line of benefits. And I came up with that with a bit of C-section and two cams that I'd filed out of aluminium, and I just, the client never saw it, but it worked so effectively. I
yeah,
thought, okay, this is a solution. And so we just developed that further and further into this solution. And that's how it came about. Just the simplest handmade proof of principle jig, and then it goes right
yeah,
to the
that's great.
trouble here. Like you'd never show you the client that, and you never show the
Yeah,
scratchings on paper that look like chicken scratchings all over the place. But when you get your final concept drawings and your final prototype, it really evokes a lot of emotion to sit down and go, oh yeah, this is how it works, and oh, this is going to fit what we're trying to solve. And yeah, it's just gives you an
yeah,
emotional response. I've had a guy cry on me once, a big grader driver. But I shouldn't show you this because but this is a rotating rod holder. But it meant so much to him to get the solution. I mean, he'd been trying to do it for a long time. It's a rotating rod holder,
yeah.
so you push this button and it rotates around, allows you to readjust all your angles on your fishing rods in your boat. But it meant so much to him to have a solution that he'd been thinking about for years and years and years, and it gave such an emotional response to have it to this level where it was all milled
Actually materialized.
stainless, and
Yeah,
he
yeah.
held it in his hand, had the weight and the quality of it, and he just, yeah, he got a tear in his eye. I'm like, holy shit, I hope that's tears of joy, not not disappointment. And he just said that, it means so much to me that, I've got this physical product in my hand. And what it meant to him was he'd get out of doing his job, which he was unhappy with. He'd been doing it for many, many years and it was breaking his body, but driving graders.
Oh,
And it meant there was a path out of that for him. And that's why he was so emotional about it. And that's a nice thing.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's interesting to hear how you go about it because, like you say, just trying to lash something up to try to prove principles sort of saves a lot of time and effort till you really can zero in on something that's
Yeah.
likely to
Yeah.
need to put them bigger effort into
It's all
making a
about
more
proving
substantial.
things early. As I said before, fail early. If my little filed piece of material didn't work, I would have gone another idea
Oh,
instead of developing it all the way through to a working prototype and going, oh, it doesn't work. There's thousands of dollars involved in that. So my little 2 hours of playing in the workshop, insignificant compared with that. And if it hadn't worked, I would have had to just go back to the drawing board. What else can I do? So yeah,
that's right. I mean, the key thing is it's got to solve the problem. It's got to solve the problem efficiently, right?
yeah,
Before someone's going to buy it. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, great. That's all good. Yeah, probably sort of one of the things to lead into then is, we've talked about how far you can take things. You've got the early stage stuff, you build it up to a certain size, certain working prototype. You might trial a few of those, then you might go to a pre-production before you go to production. But a lot of that, how far you go on that is probably going to depend on what sort of business model you're going to run,
Yeah,
right? So,
that's right.
we could sort of briefly touch on that in the sense that, some people want to go down a license. That's kind of the easiest way. I mean, it's all the amount you invest in it depends on the returns you're going to get. So if you go the whole way and become the manufacturer, potentially you can make much more money, but there's a hell of a lot of time and money to go into getting to that point, right? So a lot of people and vendors will that we deal with will want to go down the licensing path where you get it to a certain stage and then you'll actually go and do a license and then they do the manufacturing and selling,
Yeah.
etc. And you just take a royalty from it. But then just do you want to sort of just discuss the sort of how far you go with some of those things? I mean, in my experience, it's also, even though you might want to do a licensing thing, you've got to make a certain number of these things and put them in customers' hands and make sure they're going to work and they buy them and all that sort of stuff. So you have to do some sort of low key sort of manufacturing stuff to get to a certain point. Have you got different examples or experiences on that side of things too, of how far you have to go?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of it's budget related. Obviously, this guy here, he was quite well off. He had another business that funded this thing, and this is more of a hobby for him. And he started off along this line, but this was his design. He'd actually also done the prototype up, but it was a single, so it ratchets that way, but it doesn't ratchet that way. And my concern was
Oh,
I
yeah.
have two dogs, and one pulls
Yeah.
on that, it's going to choke my dog. So I always said, I'm not really interested going this way. And he pushed because he always said, "Oh, we'll leave it on lead. We'll never undo the lead, so it's always on a dog's for walking only." Always bothered me, but he went right to manufacturing with this one here, and we got into a licensing agreement in a big American company, and was ready to sign. And one of the ladies just did this and goes, "Hang on," and it was all done, all fell apart. And it was like,
Just
holy
Chapman.
smokes! So a lot of money, a lot of energy spent, but he had the budget. He wanted to push it, and um, we had to reset and everything. It was probably quite a waste of money, but he learned a lot. He considered it an education. Wasn't too upset by it all. And then I went back and said, look, I'll try and invent a double-sided ratchet,
Oh,
which was the first of the world that we got patented for him. And it ended up being, we got a good result out of it. But some people can come with very little money, and obviously then you have to try and so if you go licensing path, you really have to do all the bells and whistles, because a licensed company has already an existing sales pipeline. They have an existing customer base. So we research that, find out who these people are, and we design for that. We design for the top end, because when you go along to a licensing company, they really have to go, this is going to slot straight into our sales pipeline and be ready to roll off the bat. And so, up to what the client can afford, we try and develop it to its highest degree and get a prototype, to this level, so that when they're sitting in a
yeah.
boardroom, the same emotional responses happen. People are going, oh, great. Like you put something like this on the table. It's light. It's got no look to it. It's got no feel to it. It's pretty nasty stuff. It definitely proves form and fit in engineering, but it doesn't have the feel of this. When someone can actually
No.
sit there and go, I can picture this on my boat. I can picture how to use it. All these things work. All the technical all the technical issues just get tick, 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 tick. The engineers in the room go, yep, that's all good. So then it's up to sales and business people, how the business works and what the profits are, how much was to make, and all those sort of things come into it. So you've already ticked off one part of it. Technical things, okay. You've got a patent tick, market proof tick. And then it's all about, does the business work for us? Can we implement it? So you've ticked a lot of boxes there. So really, when you're doing a licensing deal, you're trying to do as much as you can with the budget as available to try and put all the bells and whistles on the product. If you've got limited budget, you can look at what's the lowest hanging fruit. What can we do? What is the least we can do to try and get that product in front of a licensed partner to still sell the sizzle. And if you've got a situation where you want to manufacture it yourself, obviously there's a lot of cost involved in that. So there's a lot less control with licensing. So basically, licensing's awesome if you can get it, but it takes someone like Trevor and yourself to go along and present it all. It's a fairly costly process, and and there's not much control over it. You're in the hands of a third party. So when you manufacture the product yourself and you sell it yourself, you've got full control, but then you've got all the risks, you've got all the insurance, all the logistics, all the manufacturing, so many things. And you know what? Some people just don't want to be in it. They don't understand what it is to run a big business, because these things we do aren't hobby type products. there for multinational sale. Whenever I develop a product, it's going to be for multinational sale to try and allow you to offset the investment. And so
Sure.
we've had clients who've come in and, they've had great ideas, and we sit down and I say, this is in 5 years' time where you want to be, because that's where it starts. What business do you want out of this? And they say, I want to manufacture and be the business owner and be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, have you really thought about that? It's really quite a hard process. Now, my dad had a big company, and you basically become a slave to that business. And so people don't realize that they lose a lot of their freedom. So we have our clients who've got 5 years down the track, they're making millions and millions of dollars of profit, and they're unhappy because, they're running this big business and they can't see their family. And the compromises were too big. It's quite a big undertaking to run a big business. And so quite often there's other strategies we'll employ, like the licensing, where you basically develop the product, solve all the problems, prototype it, and then take that along to a third party, a multinational, or a larger company that has a similar product range, and just present it to them, and that company will manufacture the product for you and pay you a royalty for each product that's sold. So that's obviously much less risk, because you don't have to pay for manufacturing and all the distribution, reps on the road, storage, warehousing, all that sort of thing. But honestly, I think sometimes it's actually as lucrative as running a business, because by the time all the outgoings go in, you're almost making the sort of same money when they're selling to a bigger pie and you're selling to a small
Yeah,
pie.
that's right. Yeah, you're making a smaller amount from a bigger pie.
Yeah,
So
exactly right. So it can be
so
quite an effective way of doing it for a startup. That if you want to, we do have a lot of people who do manufacture themselves. This guy, this is that example I used before. He manufactured it himself and sells it himself, and now he uses distributors to sell it. So he's actually retired in Bali now, which was his objective. So it's a nice result. But he manufactured this entirely, and then he now uses distributors to sell the product for him around the world. And he doesn't have much of an input anymore. He just basically manages the manufacturing side of things and supply to the third parties, and they go and distribute it. So they look after all the logistics, all the marketing, all the sales, and that's another way of going about it. We actually did all the bells and whistles for him, because it was one of those products. It's a fairly simple product when it comes down to it. It is more complicated than a standard rod holder, but it isn't. It wasn't overly expensive to manufacture. When you get to a point when it's really expensive to manufacture, there's huge volumes involved, you don't really have a choice but to go to either get investors or go to a third party and license it. So in answer to your question, like how far do you take it? I think it really is always budget related. What's the best solution for the project at the time with the budget available? I think that's the pretty best way to describe it, because as I said, if you've got a big budget as a startup, you can go all the way. And if you haven't, you have to really try and just look at the lowest hanging fruit. What's the minimum viable product, the least I can do to get this thing on in front of the table and actually have someone buy into the idea.
yeah, no, that's useful. And I suppose that guy's making good use of his rod holder in Bali too, by the sound of it.
I'd say it was. It took him a long time to get a boat, because he, for many years,
Busy.
he didn't have a, he was spending so much money on developing the product and getting up the ground in the Valley of Death, they call it, that there wasn't a lot left over for any luxuries, and he lived quite a frugal life. But that's half the, I think the definition of an entrepreneur is someone who's willing to go without now so that they could have more later. And that's what he did. He went without for a long time while that company took hold, and while he was just pouring money into it while it was developing and started. It's a very expensive and very stressful process to manufacture it yourself, especially when you're relying on your own finances.
Yeah, this whole commercialization process takes a lot of tenacity and persistence, that's for sure. A lot of money. Yeah, which goes back to the whole thing about making sure you really got product market fit from the beginning, because it's one thing to have persistence and stay at it, but if you're flogging a dead horse, you've got to understand that you are. So you want to know early on that you're going to not to back a dead horse right from the beginning. So it's very key to make sure you've got all your ducks lined up and researched early on to make sure that you are going down a viable path. Check that the market really wants it, test it with the market, etc. and then even testing with the market is where you come in as well. Obviously, you need to get to the stage where you get some prototypes and things and put them in people's hands. Until it's one thing to talk about concepts, but people, as you've been saying, people need to touch and feel something to
Absolutely.
really
Yeah. Yeah.
understand.
And that's why I love
What,
what Trevor's doing with Advivo and yourself. That whole validation part of it, it's invaluable. And like I've actually got a product myself. I developed this product here. It's my own product. It's a fishing sinker, and it's a quick change fishing sinker. And I mean, I don't
okay.
have a lot of time for it. I work a lot of hours here, and it's a lot very mentally draining. So I developed this product with a partner who came to me with an idea, and I invented a
Oh,
solution for him, and we developed it up. But I'll just show you how it works. It's just it's a most sinkers have always been the same, either a rock or a piece of lead with a hole in it. It's got a clasp on it that opens up.
yep,
The line goes through here, and you
yep.
put it on. It means you change the whole way you fish. You can actually change the depth of your fishing bait from the boat.
Oh,
It
right, yeah.
becomes dynamic instead of a static process where, okay, the
You got to
change of the
retire.
winds
Yeah,
change, and the bait's off the bottom. You just put another one on from the boat, it goes to the bottom again, or you can explore the whole water column. It's really, really useful. People who use it love it, but I just don't have the knowledge about how to get it out there and really tell everyone about it. And it takes a lot
oh,
of energy and time, which I don't have, and money too. These
yeah,
days, you can't just organically
for
share
sure.
things; they get shared. These social media
Mm.
platforms get paid, and if they don't get paid, they don't
Yes.
share it. So you've really got to hit the right market at the right time. So, and with the right message. And so what Trevor does there, and I've watched a few podcasts recently. There's whenever I get in the car, I try and listen to one. And the other day, he just really nailed on the green jelly beans. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a
I think that was
it's
the first one,
a
wasn't
whole
it?
box of
The
jelly
first
beans.
podcast.
A whole jar of
Yeah,
jelly beans, all different colors. That's a whole market. But
yeah,
you can never hit that whole market with any marketing message at once. You've got to find the
oh,
green jelly beans, pull them all out, aim at that market to start with. So this thing's really good for snapper fishing, float lining, they call it. So
yeah,
it's ideal for that. So I should have 4 years ago when I started, I should have aimed at the snapper market, and I probably would have done, a lot better,
yeah,
got more traction. So I'm learning
yeah,
as we go as well. And I'd never professed to be a good marketer or a good salesperson, but I saw my God's gift was solving problems. So that's what I do.
yeah,
And I'm so glad I know you guys now because I can palm that I've started off. I've tried to do it for people and I don't have the skills. And it's nice to know we've got a partner now who can look after that for our clients and take
oh,
that whole turnkey operation right through to commercial success, which we're already seeing with projects that
yeah.
have sat for a long time and not got traction. And now Trevor and yourself are trying to, you know, give them life, which is beautiful.
Yeah, no, that's great. As you say, there's a lot of aspects to this whole commercialization journey. No one's an expert in every one of them usually, so you need to work together as a team, which
Yeah,
we do.
yeah,
You cover all the clever design aspects. We work with patent attorneys, work with good marketing guys like Trevor and Linda. So that sort of says, you want to be watching this podcast series because we're covering all those different sort of topics. So would recommend for everyone to sort of have a look at what else is available on that product market fit guy in the series.
yeah.
There's quite a number of them out
I
already,
agree.
and we've done you've done a couple yourself now, as well, Scott. And we had a chat with Andy the other day on the patenting side.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of useful information there, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that you should know and learn about
yeah.
to do this successfully. So that's
I've learned
great.
a lot.
I
I
guess.
think I've seen a lot of podcasts and something in my time, and the ones that Trevor been doing you really cut to the chase and really have some very powerful points there. I definitely recommend that as well. Sure.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks for your time today, Scott. We'll just wrap that up. I mean, the key takeaways today, I think, from this, make sure you do engage a design engineer early in the process. But even before that, make sure that you know what your product market fit is, that there really is a market there, so that you've got information there to take to guys like yourself who
Yeah.
want to design around and decide what the MVP is and how best to sort of go about solving that problem that's going to have the market that you've identified. As we said, you got to know your commercial and patent strategy because it all fits together.
Yeah.
So you have to be across this whole space and work with a team of people, I think, to sort of get there efficient. Well, thanks very much again for your time, Scott, and everybody. If you like, make sure you like this one when you've been watching it, and stay tuned for the next episode of that product market fit guy. Thanks a lot,
Thanks,
Scott.
Dave. Cheers. Bye.